Hello, welcome. I'm Alex from SVT Cobra, and today it's time to ask a question that's almost as old as time. Mustang, Camaro. We have two examples here from 20 years ago. Let's see how they did it, and you let us know who you think did it best. Now to some, they might know, because if you've watched the channel before, this is my own personal 2002 Chevrolet Camaro SS. Now, if you're looking to get a full review on this video, make sure to see some of the other ones I've already done on it, as I will do more of an overview on this car today. But let's get into this one here. So again, this is my own personal 2002 Camaro here, and this was the last generation of the original Camaro called the F-Body, and this one is the last year of it, which ended in 2002, until the Camaro took a small hiatus up until the 2010 model. They brought back the 5th generation, and this is the 4th generation, and it is the refreshed 4th generation with the 5.7 LS1 motor in it, which this one in particular has. And it was a really cool car for the era, brought a lot of cool and different features here, which we'll dive into. Now this Mustang here is a 1999 SVT Cobra. This is part of Mustang's sort of last generation before they did the refresh in 2005. They made this one from 99 to 04. So this is the first year of this body style. But they did this, it was a refresh from the previous years, which I started in 94. Now, if you want to actually own this car actually is for sale currently right now at the time of this filming of this video. So if you want more details on this one in terms of price and everything like that, make sure to check out our website at www.royalchev.com to see if you are interested in getting this. It could be yours. Now, going into this car here, this one here was a 4.6 liter derived motor, but since it was the SVT, this one in particular has the 32 valve option, and these are actually hand-built motors in this, which I'll go into, and they're pretty cool. Now, no matter what, each of these cars would have been icons of the era, and they would have been the coolest muscle cars you could have at that time period. In terms of if you wanted American muscle, this is what both GM and Ford were offering in terms of giving you the most bang for your buck. So these are really cool options that you could have. Now, if you're looking at either one of these, in terms of if you're looking at getting one, or that they actually have similar outputs. So in terms of the SVT here, as I mentioned, it has a 4.6 liter engine. This one in particular has been upped with power and has a really unique engine. Let's start with this one. So at the time this vehicle came out, this was a really new design for Ford. This one offered a lot of cool things. As I mentioned, mostly the motor is what the most unique part of this is. This was Ford's newest SVT, so they had to do something special with it. So they redid it for the 99 model year, and this one here is a 32 valve Ford V8 that the standard vehicles had about 200 and I think it was 60 horsepower for the V8s of that era, 99. These ones here had 320 horsepower. That's right. I know it's not a lot today, but for this time, this was a lot of power, and it still was a really cool engine. And these are all hand-built engines and actually signed by the people at the factory that built them. And this one does have a little signature there. It's pretty cool, and it has a nice Cobra logo on there. It just looks real nice, and it's huge. It's really a different kind of motor output. Now, with the Camaro, this one here is the LS1, which was brought in firstly the Corvettes of the era. I think it was the 97 was the first year for the C5, and then they brought this in the 98 Camaro as well a year later when they did the refresh styling for this style here, which they made this body style from 98 to 2002, but this generation of the 4th gen started in 1994. So this was a refresh for that era, and again, this was the last year. And this one here, they offered it in a variety of different horsepower outputs. The base version came with 310 horsepower, but since mine here has the SLP with the wide mouth configuration, pretty much top of the line for that time, it actually makes 345 horsepower. So both of these make similar horsepower outputs, and they have some pretty cool touches no matter which way you go. Now the SVT gave you more than just a bigger motor. There were a lot of cool things. Now this one is the convertible version. As you can see, they were offered in coupes as well, but this one here is the convertible we have today, and it still gave you, no matter whether you went coupe or convertible, you had the same outputs for motors. Now the later version, I should mention, the 03 and 04, they call those the Terminator ones, and they made a little bit more power because they were supercharged. This is the unsupercharged version, and I believe those ones had the output of 390, but these early versions were 320. But they still came with some other cool features that were also unique for the Mustang, as well as modern features that were surprising for this time era and still actually fairly relevant today. This one came with the upgraded wheel package. It has the SVT wheels on it as well, which have the SVT logo, and it has the Cobra brakes on here as well, which were a little bit better stopping power. I even think they used them on some brakes from back in the day, so this one here was a better braking. And the other unique thing on this one too is that this one also had independent rear suspension, which was the first time they had ever put independent suspension in a Mustang. They didn't re-put that in until the later years of the 2015 Mustang. So this is the only other era that has it previous to that. So it's pretty cool that you've had that, and they actually brought it back in later Mustangs. So this is pretty early technology for the time, but advanced at the time for Ford. Now, obviously other manufacturers are using it, but for the Mustang, this was new at that time. A different approach when it came to their muscle car of this era. They offered it in 3 different configurations. They offered it in a coupe, convertible, and as you can see, mine here is the T-top configuration. Now, the Cobra had the upgraded brakes and again, the independent suspension. What did Chevrolet bring? Now, this one here is a little bit different what it offered. This one's still a live axle rear end, which again was actually on the other Mustangs too. So this is more similar to those in terms of what it had, but it still was considered a better handling overall compared to the regular GTs. SVT was a little bit different when they brought that, and that was considered a little bit better handling. But compared to the regular GTs, the Camaro was considered a little bit better in that regard. So it depended on what you were looking for. But again, they offered this in the T-tops, which may be something you wanted. Maybe you're looking for that and not the necessarily they're looking to do and take some of the track. But again, this one here offered the live rear axle. It had the 5.7 liter V8 engine, which is a very reliable one, and so was the 4.6 that era, but it just depended on what you were looking for. Now, in terms of this one here, this was the SLP 2 configuration, so it did offer some extra things on it as well. With the upgraded wheel package, it also had better intake. This is a functional ram air intake on here, and it also had the SLP wide mouth on here for better exhaust flow, which again gave it the extra horsepower, bringing this to the 345. And for the last year, there also was special 35th anniversary. This is still a 35th anniversary we have here today, but there were special ones as well offered for that time period, and they both were nice performance vehicle options depending on what you're looking for. Look at the back here of this SVT Mustang. If you were looking at buying this or a regular GT, there wasn't too many distinguishing factors between this and a regular GT. Other than the fact there's an SVT logo right here. If you were looking at this from behind, you probably wouldn't know that you're looking at a Cobra. This here is pretty much the same design and everything else you got. But it still was a nice design. You got the nice iconic 3 taillights here design with that Mustangs had from that era. It had the nice dual exhaust. This has Mustang in the back of the bumper here. Now, some of the later versions I do believe offered the Cobra bumper, which actually said Cobra in there. I think it was a little bit more aggressive. I don't think this one has the more aggressive bumper on it. I think this was maybe to the 99s. Someone might correct me on that there, but I think the 99s were a little bit different as they were the first one. And I think the 2001, which they brought this back for, had a couple of updates on it for that year. But this one here just had the traditional Mustang bumper and probably much the same. So in the back of the Camaro here, it had a little bit more of a different design. As you can see, it's a little bit more sloped back compared to the Mustang. I know that one is convertible, but again, the overall design was a little bit more sloped back, a little bit different. mostly because in the back of this, the biggest difference is between these two is that this one's actually a hatchback. I'll show you. So this one here, if you pop it, pops up, and it was a hatchback. Now the reason this was like this was because this one had T-tops as an option, so they wanted to make something that was easy to load it in. So you have actually room in here for your T-tops, and actually a fairly large storage compartment in here for items. So if you're not putting the T-tops in there, you actually have a lot of storage, but if you still want to go on that ride, you still have a little bit there, which is nice. But this one had a bit of a different design here as well, with this sort of wing that wraps around the entire body here. These really nice cool taillights, and the Camaro, which I like how it just says it there and sort of that writing there. It looks really nice, and the SS logo, of course. Now what makes this a little bit different, being the SLP configuration with the wide mouth, is that this one has the exhaust down here, which is center mount, which we'll take a listen to here in a second. And this one here was different because of that, because that was a factory option, but you had to go up in the range to get that. The other ones would have, the Mustang had, which is that dual outlet on the side. This one had that unique center mount wide mouth. Now, in terms of the front design of this vehicle, they were also fairly much the same as regular GTs. Though I do think this one actually does have the Cobra bumper on it, which gave you a little bit more of an aggressive front end compared to those regular GTs. And there was a Cobra logo on the side of the vehicle as well, to let you know that this was a Cobra, as well as I mentioned that you do have the SVT logos themselves in the wheels. But it was much more subtle than maybe a Cobra Mustang of today, or a Shelby Mustang, as they're now called, would be looking, because they have more of those logos that are a little bit more aggressive. This was taking that subtle approach. So let's talk design for the Camaro now. Now this one was a little bit panned at the time for its design. Chevrolet at the time was going for very aerodynamic styling, and they achieved that. It's actually one of GM's lowest in terms of coefficient of friction. In terms of aerodynamics, it had a very streamlined design, but that resulted in people giving this the nickname, the Catfish Camaro. Now this Camaro, again, was a refreshed design from 98 to 2002, so they called it that from this era, but I actually think it's aged fairly well, and I actually think it looks still fairly modern based on the design they chose, and it really is a handsome car once you actually look at it, and I think they really did a nice job achieving what they were looking for. And it has some cool touches with the headlights, with the way they're designed, and just the overall look does give it a very nice muscle car appearance. Now, I mentioned that exhaust. Let's take a listen to both of these vehicles. Ford Mustang. I had to film this portion on a different day as the tape got lost on the other one, so I'm just refilming this today on this part here, so it looks a little different from the rest of the video. I'm sorry, but this is what I had to do here. Now, this 1999 Mustang here looks very similar to the other ones. The only differences you'll see here are some subtle touches, being the Cobra, but this still came nicely appointed for the era. Compared to modern interiors, it's a little more basic, but again, has some nice things like this nice leather seats. This one here is a 5-speed manual transmission, 5-speed Tremec transmission on here, which is nice. This one also had, again, the nice leather wrap wheel. Now, with the Cobra stuff you're going to see here, it does have the Cobra badge right here on the steering wheel, or Cobra lettering, I should say. And it did come with some unique white face gauges, which was unique to the SVTs. Only those came with the white face gauges, and again, the little Cobra writing here. And this does have the Mach 460 sound system in here, which was the upgraded sound system you can get for the Mustangs of this year. And you had your more basic interior with your, your climate controls for AC, radio, and everything like that. Fairly basic controls, and then there were top controls in here. But again, the interior of these cars were more for just get in and drive, and looking for something that just had a nice bit of power and the modern conveniences of the area, of the era, this is what you would get here. Again, a little more basic than today, but plenty of nice amenities for those looking to get into one of these cars at this time. Now, in the Camaro, this one had a slightly different interior. It's a little bit lower than the Mustang in terms of where you're sitting, and you feel a little bit lower in this too. Now, this one had, again, the same sort of leather wrap wheel. Has a few more controls in the steering wheel. You have your volume controls and music controls here in terms of that, but your cruise controls over to the side. So a couple nice things on there. You had all your power equipment. This one has a 6-speed Hurst, factory Hurst shifter, which is pretty cool in here, which was really nice. You also have the traction control, everything like that. Again, the radio here, which is a little bit basic, but this does have the monsoon sound system on it, and it air conditioning. Again, these interiors are way more basic compared to modern cars, but again, these weren't about all the features. They were about having a motor, wheels, and a nice steering wheel, again, to point that power. Thanks for watching. I'm Alex from Road Chevrolet Cadillac, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Which one would you pick? This Camaro or the Mustang? Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Tell us know what you think and how they stack up with today's modern muscle. See you guys on the next video.